Director McVeigh, would you please lead us in the?
Which meeting are you calling to order?
Yes.
This meeting I'm calling to order is our regular meeting of September 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
If you all stand, please, flags over in the corner. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this evening I'll just introduce everybody. So we have on my far right, Director McVeigh, Director Beaver, myself, Chair Beverly Fickus, our General Manager Paul Kelly, and our Administrative Assistants Kayla Falls. Our newest Director, Logan Johnston, will be here shortly. So,
and our other director.
and our other Director, Terry, is still ill, so we're hoping he's gonna get better soon, or get his energy back. For open time and public comments, so for those of you that have been attending, Chair Beverly is very lax with rules and regs and formalities in our board meetings, and I generally should not be. Everything runs fine, and until it doesn't run fine. So if you need to speak, if you could please come to the podium or raise your hand and come on up so you can be recognized. So we've just been allowing people to speak from the floor, which can sometimes be okay, and sometimes, you know, if you're speaking out of turn. So I just would, if we can get back to a little bit of formality, I'm very informal that way, but it's probably not the proper way to do it. So we will try to recognize everybody in a timely fashion.
If I can add to that, are we going to continue the practice we've historically done of a sign-up sheet for the open time? Yes
and
it's a
no.
question.
You don't necessarily have to. There is a sheet there for open time for people to sign up, but we generally don't have a lot of that.
True.
So
Not anymore.
there's no problem with people coming up to the podium to speak. It may be called not a podium. Is it called a podium or is it called a lectern?
We're gonna call it a podium. I don't really wanna hear any lectures.
Yeah, I think there's another name for it too. So currently we're now at open time and public comment. So if there's anybody that wishes to speak, Sandy, if you could.
Hi, Sandy Winters. I'm representing the Firewise Committee out here. We're planning a bus tour courtesy of Wind River Casino on October as well. That will be our monthly meeting. No meeting for this month. And we're going to tour all the fire prone areas, and we'll start at 5 o'clock. We're going to meet at the center, Happy Valley Foundation Center, and we're probably trying to do it in about 2 hours because it's going to be getting dark earlier by the end. Days are going to be getting shorter. And the county fire safe council is going to have a fun festival out at Palisades at their park on October the 14th. And it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Home hardening tips, defensible space advice, firefighter challenge, that ought to be interesting. CAL FIRE and USF demonstrations, home risk assessments, and that starts at 10 o'clock and runs to 3 o'clock on the 14th. Now, if anybody's interested in joining our group and touring with our bus, you're welcome to sign up with me. I just need to know,
When you're done, I have a question.
Well, I just need to know who all's coming. We can take 28 people maximum. And we've got about 15 right now so far.
All right. We need to be turning in our sheets by November, and since the October is going to be that tour, those of us who are able to do that, can you tell us other locations that those sheets can be turned into?
Yes, Bonnie Burgers.
Just Bonnie Burger.
Yeah.
Okay. And they need to be turned in so that we're accredited again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, any questions on our tour? Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Oh, I'm sorry about the protocol last meeting. I got carried away. After 3 years of going to meetings with you, 3 years last August, I'm just used to just.
Me too, Sandy, me too, that's,
It's the same group of people.
yeah, I know, so we're all just, you know, yeah, we're comfy, so.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
So anyone else needing to speak during open time on anything that is not on the agenda? Okay, so we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just quick recitation of the items that are there. We have minutes for the special meeting on the 7th of June, and regular meetings the July 21st and August 30th. It was actually the August 16th meeting that got rescheduled. I'm only really bringing this up because you'll notice on the June meeting is a verbatim minutes, and all the others are action minutes, so it's your first chance to see that. Would also just mention that the check signers had asked to have a couple of items printed in after your bills paid section, so just recognizing that we have some of those there. We also have your payroll and your activity report. We'd really just comment, great example of if you were just to focus on your July activity report where we had a negative 8,200 and something, you can see the difference in this one. But I would just mention on this activity report, at the board's indulgence, one of the reasons is this is capturing a lot of those delinquent accounts that have been paid, that we've been reporting have been paid. Because if you do the quick calculation, you would think we had over 3,000 base rates in the district, which we obviously do not. Also, it points to a challenge that we're having with bookkeeper and I are trying to figure out, and that is, you know, at next month's meeting, we're going to have a three months, July, August, and September actuals to budget, and have sort of budget adjustment discussion, and there needs to be some reporting of the monies that are going into reserves and other things that they're not on here. And so we're actually having a call tomorrow with an accountant to find out how we're best supposed to show that. They are arguing that my way that I showed it in the budget, which is you have revenue coming in and then you have expense to a reserve account, is an incorrect way to do that because you're not actually expending any of that money. And I'm just saying, yes, you are. You're taking it out of your operating and putting it in reserves. You'll then identify when that money comes out of reserves to an expense. But that also points to the district has not brought before the board's balance sheet for a long time. So the bookkeeper and I are working on trying to get that so that that can be a quarterly item to show our long-term liabilities, our reserves, and all the rest of that stuff. Okay. Just wanted to mention that in this one.
Okay, so most of these items we discussed during our finance committee meeting that we had, standing committee last week. So, was there anything that?
Do we want to talk about the invoices that we highlighted?
I did.
Good. I believe the first invoice with the U.S. Bank, the 4362 charge for the property damage surcharge. I believe our general manager is working on trying to figure out what that is, because it popped up on the next invoice also.
Director Johnston, how are you doing?
Do I know you?
I guess we need to call you.
Only barely.
Welcome to the packet there, by the way. And there's also a sign-in sheet and we'll tell you that that's a flash drive that has a lot of your background materials and training stuff. Thank you very much.
And then I'll follow up.
All right, Director McVeigh, you were saying,
Oh, just that
The
language
property
with
damage.
the- Yeah,
and we are checking in on that one.
thank you.
On the state of California, infrastructure safety, so this is, I didn't understand that, last meeting, Paul told us that the state or whoever used to do it, the 811 number to say where the utilities are, they don't do that anymore. They just call the district and say, will you go out and do it? And it's on our dime, correct?
Right, so this is the probably now 4 or 5 year old state agency. It's kind of a quasi-state agency that broke off. And they're the processing center. So when you call 811, it goes to them. They then contact the district to do the locate. And so the reason why this is in here is because I brought it up last time. As you can see, our little old district had 4,219 811 calls in the district. So that alone was a $2,600 bill just to handle those calls. But that has nothing to do, because we haven't quantified how much cost to the district for the time for our distribution supervisor and other people to run out and put the blue paint out there.
So the state charges us to do that?
They charge us to process that ticket, yes.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
I know, so we sent a note to them. They fairly quickly obliged us with all of the state codes that empower them to do this. But this really points to a more challenging issue. You know, at the same time that they instituted this, one of the changes was in the old days when I was working in other locations, when the utility called 811, they paid a per linear feet cost to go out. In other words, if they wanted to locate Happy Valley Road, we could then charge them, you know, hey, this is how many feet it was, and we're going to charge you whatever, I don't know, whatever the state rate was. Now it's on a per ticket basis. So literally they can call and say, we want to locate along Happy Valley Road, and you got to come out and locate it, and it's all on our dime. And then at that same time, the state instituted a whole new program, right? You know, before you disc or till, you should call 811. Before you put in a fence at your house, call 811. Those, of these 4,219, that's probably the 19 of them, right? It's hardly anything. So what's happening is a really, really good thing is happening in our district. PG&E is undergrounding utilities in high fire prone areas. Bella Vista is dealing with this as well. So just some context, Bella Vista got 8,000 calls last time. And they actually have 1.5 full-time people that just do locates. But what's happening is it's a good thing they're doing undergrounding. PG&E sends out their contractors, in this case MGE and a few others, and they're really, they're not design build, they're design on the fly. So they call us, we go locate, they go out and they check out where the lines are, they run back to their draftsmen, they draft up where the pipe should be to avoid our lines, they come out and do it. The other thing with 811, you have, the district has 72 hours to do the locate, and they're only good for 30 days. So by the time they actually mobilize their equipment out there, the 30 days is much long run. So they call for another locate for us to do the same thing. And then they do the locates all the way down the road, all the way out to Linda. You've seen them working on there. Yeah. So we are working with our allied organizations like the Association of California Water Agencies, the Rural Water Community Association. We even brought it up to Aqua JPIA yesterday. And obviously working with our fellow districts that are dealing with this to say, there's got to be a better way to do this. And PG&E's been hard to get a hold of on this particular issue, but I have gotten a hold of somebody, you know, because I want to talk about my bill. So they're like, oh, I haven't talked about that. And I said, well, I got a few other things to talk to you
question, a couple of questions. Is this an annual bill then?
Yes,
Okay, I thought it might have been. And am I correct in assuming that there's a certain number of these tickets that you don't get charged for, and when you go beyond that, that's when the charge, what was it, first 50 or something?
no, I think it's actually the first, I'll have to look, I shouldn't say.
Could be 100.
I think it's 125.
Yeah.
I think that's a number that's just sticking in my head.
Okay, we had the recap sheet for, the Bureau.
Yeah, I think, your check signers really wanted this just to show the community that it's just another one of our bureau payments, but in this case, you know, we actually get a credit, so again, I know it's really confusing, but in this case, we schedule 290 acre feet for irrigation, and 300 acre feet in municipal and industrial, so you actually pay that August schedule on July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you get to September 1st, you take the August actual and you subtract that from what you paid. And in this case, we get a significant credit, mostly because we attributed 200 acre feet of the M&I water to the McConnell water, because we have to buy it anyway.
Right.
So, we just wanted to get it so that we can get to the free McConnell water, which is gonna be this month, next month in November. So that's the main reason why, but we do submit this so that we can have a rolling credit with the Bureau.
And I have one question in reference to this. Because we're not using what we had originally scheduled, have you had a discussion with the Bureau yet on a year-end adjustment, a credit or something, on how that's gonna be handled?
Yes, we have had a conversation, Jake Barons in particular, and Don Bader. Their comment was, at this point, it's best to allow the credits to just continue to roll through until the end of the calendar year, and then that gives us a couple of months to figure out how to balance it out.
Sure. Makes sense.
And then the next invoice that we had tagged was Thatcher Company.
Yeah, that's our chlorine.
Those are just the cylinders, the deposits, correct? On 2
So the
cylinders?
first page is the deposit, so the 2 cylinders that are now empty get sent back, they give us a $2,000 credit. And then, guess what, they they charge us $2,000 for the 2 cylinders on the next page.
For the 2 new ones?
Plus the chlorine, of course,
Oh, yeah.
now that they filled them.
So did we really only owe them 6,000 though?
Yeah, I see the charge invoice and I don't see the 2,000 credit coming off of that bill.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up on that. I actually think it's one of those weird things, since these both go in at the same time, that $2,000 credit won't show up until the next chlorine bill.
Okay. Any other questions on financials? No.
Yeah, I had a couple of things.
Talking profit loss or?
Activity report.
Yeah.
The activity report. First off, looking at that, I want to thank you for the work you've done with PG&E and getting the standby rate of the wells greatly reduced. They've been running 5,600 or more per month, and we were down to about $680. So that's a good job. That's quite a savings. Though it popped back up this next month.
Yeah. they
But
popped
that's
it.
PG&E doing it, and it sounds like you're gonna have to, every other month, follow up with them and say, hey.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, line 41305 was chemicals, I'm assuming that was water treatment plant. At first I thought it might have fallen under distribution. I was wondering, like that and the water quality analysis, can that not be put under water treatment? Because it comes down well past distribution on our profit loss statement. I was just wondering if maybe those should be moved up to the water treatment area for expenses. Might be a little more transparent that way.
Yeah, we will definitely follow up on that, now that you point that out. At least the Thatcher, invoices that we just talked about, which by the way, net to that amount, those should be under treatment. We
Yeah.
do, when we use our wells, that's why we have
Separate lines.
expense here, we can have chlorine down there. But in this case, that should be under treatment.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So maybe we can get those moved over there. It'll give us a better idea of the true cost through treatment. And then the only other, well, a couple other things. Would it be possible to have a separate monthly report, since we're working on two different grants? And we have expenses that will be reimbursed, that we have a separate report maybe on what the expenses that we've paid out, that will be reimbursable, so that we can better understand what the bottom line will look like. I know we paid Pace Engineering 50,000+, and there's electrical work, or was it Rosie Electricals down there? I saw an invoice, I thought.
Ross.
So there's,
Rossi.
you know,
Ross.
Rossi, okay. And I know at the water treatment plant, we've got things going on too. So I think for the public and for the board's sake, we'd like to see kind of on a separate report where those things are going, and maybe then report back that, yes, we've been reimbursed, so that it's coming back in.
Right,
That's just a good way of tracking it.
yep.
And then line 5535. Where's mine? That was the, building and ground maintenance, 50,535. Building and ground maintenance / other, it was $4,600. Now, I know you got, the spraying around the building. I didn't see was the floor cleaning, stripping, resetting included in that? I thought I saw that someplace else. You've got, waste management comes in there, but that's what, about 120 a month, so. It might be nice to be broken out to, we have AC repairs or, things like that. If there were special things that were happening.
But I don't think you can put that on your.
Maybe not, but it's just a lump sum, and if someone came along and looked at it, that would look, like it was just a big chunk all of a sudden.
Through the chair, that's why it's on the consent calendar for a board member to ask. I will have Kayla answer you why it's a large amount, because unsurprisingly, it's a deferred maintenance impact, so.
That's fine.
The septic pump had to be replaced.
I
Yes.
remember
Came
that
back
invoice.
from lunch and all
A puddle.
restrooms were
Backed up,
backed up and
Okay.
flooding.
beautiful, just beautiful, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
the lack of maintenance, under this,
So,
process, so it was about $4,000, I think.
So there was a
43,
tank to be
82.
pumped also then?
What's that?
The tank had to be pumped too, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
For them to get to.
But-
So curiosity, do you know the size of the tank? 1,500, 2,000 gallon? Should be
No.
smaller because you only got two restrooms.
No.
Okay.
Well, I think that's what we're in for a while, is there's been so much.
Deferred maintenance.
Deferred everything, that we're in for surprises.
Yeah, well, even today, for example, one of our roll-up doors hasn't been working for quite some time, so we had, overhead garage door opener guy come in, and he drags me out there to point out to me that, how old was this? When was the last time it was serviced? I have no idea, so we had to replace the springs and cable and the rollers, and so there's just some things like that we're just gonna continue to run into.
Yeah.
But this is why it's on this agenda, so you can ask
Right.
about it.
I've only got one more question on the August, and that is the very next line, special professional services of 42,000. Again, is that anything grant related, or that should pop up on that report? I'm kind of wondering.
Well, yes, because that includes, the engineering on the bottom of page 2, which is identified with 2 grants, so that's about
Okay.
30,000 of that will be reimbursed.
Good. All right, that covers the notes I had on the consent agenda.
I think the, custom transaction detail report, also like it says septic pump replacement.
Yeah.
But, but it doesn't quite equal what it does on the P and L, or the activity report, so. Okey dokey, any other questions on that from the board? Any questions from the floor in regards
I
to
have a
that?
comment, Madam Chairman.
Okay,
Yes. Sit closer.
at least stand, Sandy, just stand and talk.
I took it after. You have to take into consideration, this used to be a reservoir for the old Happy Valley Water Company, so probably the ground does not drain really well. I believe that's your leach lines out there, so you may have more problems with that later on if we get another wet, heavy winter.
Thank you.
So that mound, Sandy, is leach lines?
Leach field.
Yeah,
Leach field.
they put this,
Should
they
be
put
more
the
than-
septic tank under at ground level, septic tank. When Shar had this addition put on, they had to redo the whole septic system. And I got this information from Deborah Strait, so, and he worked here at the time, and he's pretty knowledgeable. And, so then they had to cut off part of the septic system when they put this addition on. And so the tank is at ground level, but the leach lines are out there into that dirt.
So it's pumped up. And
Yeah.
it's supposed to. So it's one of the older systems expected to perk and not
This
necessarily evaporate.
was a big reservoir, there were 7 of them in that water district, and this held a lot of water.
Thank you. So any other comments from the floor? Okay, we're looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I will so move.
Interesting.
We have a second on that?
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion by Director McVeigh to accept the consent agenda, including minutes, paid bills, payroll, and the activity report, with a second by Director Johnston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approved. Ayes have it.
Thank you. Madam Chair, item A, 6A is our old business item, which is the Bureau's account reconciliation. Nothing new to report, except to say that we did get that the payment sheets that we saw earlier. We got sort of a version of the Water Year 2020 follow-up report from the Bureau, and it was their audited report. So I'm opening it. It was a physical thing. I'm thinking, well, this will be really interesting. And sure enough, finally, when I got to the actual page, it said, oh, by the way, there was no water allocation in 2022, so
Right.
nothing to give you. It was a lot of
Right.
federal spending money on paper that they didn't need to. Also, just real quick, as you saw on the report, we are getting close to paying off our WINAC balance, and so I've asked for a final payment, which will report. It should be our final payment in October. I'm planning on hoping October, depending on how we go. And
So are we down to?
$49,626.38.
Cool.
And the $1.88 stays on our bills to,
Until we recoup the
Yeah.
operational costs. Yeah.
The two balances, one to the Bureau, one back to
The district.
and then, Madam Chair, I would just mention item D on our agenda is a customer protest of the base rate. Since that customer is here, I suggest, if the board's okay with it, to move that item to the next item. And then go back to B, C, E, and F.
okay?
I agree.
Yep, we're all in agreement with that.
All right, well, with that, we're gonna go to item D, customer protest.
Let me scan past.
We have in the audience our Gary Bagnuski at 17599 Holy Way. He came in and asked and requested that since he had disconnected or had shut off his valve and later reported disconnected his second building unit from the water system, that he should be removed from a base rate. Just to really quickly remind you that throughout the district, we have multiple connections in which we have a meter, and in lieu of, and oftentimes in lieu of putting in another meter on a piece of property, which is expensive, for another unit, either a second dwelling unit or other things like that, the district would put on a base rate. In other words, it's just avoid the cost of the meter. District practice, from what I can gather, and sort of policies are that we don't remove the base rate unless there's proof of disconnection to the house. Now, I feel for our customer in this case, because this customer self-reported that he had a second unit that was being occupied, and is now self-reporting that it's no longer occupied and has shut it off. And I think what I kind of need to hear from the board is not only dealing with this one, but also at some point I'm going to suggest that you give me direction to sort of deal with other ones. Before I have you invite Gary up to say a few words about it, I do want to just report, because the chair asked this question, hey, how many connections have two base rates? Quick look, so it's not exact, but I'm pretty close. There's 102 of our accounts that have two base rates.
102 known.
Yeah. So I'll read off a couple others, but based on that comment, you know, it's one of the, there were a list of many reasons why we needed to go to a new billing software. But one of the reasons to do that is it would give us an opportunity to have a property address, APN number, meter account, and then the customer account on top of it. Because it could be owner, or it could be a renter, but that account would stay the same. And then we can have our staff, when they're reading meters, basically kind of do an audit, you know, when they're doing around, they can look and say, oh, the windows are out of that place, they're obviously not occupied, or, you know, the lights are out, or it's disconnected. So, oh, hey, this meter has one base rate on it, and there's 4 houses back there, and they're all occupied. Then they can come and tell us, we can send a letter saying, hey, according to our rules, you're supposed to report that you have the blah, blah, blah. Those are things you can give me direction to do work on, but I think when we get our new software, we'll be able to do that. So, known 102. There could be more, there could be less. Believe it or not, we have 11 customers with 3 base rates. We have 2 customers with 4 base rates. We have 2 customers with 5 base rates. We have 2 customers with 6 base rates. And we have 2 customers with 9 base rates. Those are basically mobile home parks that aren't full-on mobile home parks. Like behind the community center, that property has 9 units. And then we do have 3 mobile home parks that have, you know, over 50 units. So with that, that's my background. Oh, I will just mention, we do have effective April of 2017 rules and regulations. Thanks to the chair finding this, a definition of an additional unit is any building or trailer used as a residence separate from the main residence on one parcel of land, has its own bathroom or kitchen facility, using district water, and is hooked up to septic service, and is occupied full-time for a minimum period of 6 months or greater. So again, another trigger of how we can take care of this one. With that, I should shut up and let Gary speak.
Okay, well, before Gary speaks, I think the board's gonna have a little bit of a discussion. So I think when this was brought up and we saw this, it was brought to us, it gave us a bunch of questions as to what our procedures are. And so that's where I went looking in the rules and regs to have, what does it state? So I just kind of want to know your collective opinion before Gary even gets up and talks, what your feelings are or opinions are on this process. And do you think that it is something that we're going to have to really revamp or re-go and make sure the regulations are really pinpointed, because they're not real clear.
No, they're not.
So, just, opinions from the board?
I'll start if no one else wants to. Gary, I have 2 homes on my property, 1 meter. I pay 2 base rates, so I understand what you're saying. And I paid it for years. The district has not been consistent. It makes it difficult on the customers and the staff for what to do. I'd like to see us come up with some clear policy that define how the staff is to handle this, okay? Doesn't have to be done today, no, but, and, if I remember correctly, it was around 1994 that it was instituted, because I did some research, because there was supposed to have been a Prop 218 process involved and everything, and, so I did background work on it. There's a legal reason for charging the extra base rates for that. Laws were passed to allow that, so there's legal standing. But we have to be, I think we need a consistent policy. So, you know, that everybody's treated the same. So whatever the policy is, I'd have no problem trusting you. You would report that, you know, hey, I've got someone moving back in, so I want to pay the base rate again. But not everybody's gonna be honest like you are. So I think we need a blanket policy that covers everything. And our general manager had mentioned some sort of a lockout kind of a situation to where maybe the district provides a lock, maybe the customer does, I don't know. That's open for the board's discussion. But I'm in favor of something along those lines, personally.
I have 2 houses on 1 meter also. And I, agree that, Gary, probably, you are very honest, because you come in before us to tell us, you know, when you don't have anybody in. But, down the road, if you sell your place, then not many people would be as nice and as honest as you are. So I think, even in my own circumstance, that there should be a lockout, verifiable by the district, so that, we're not taken advantage of. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that the district is finding, is that we have been taken advantage of in so many circumstances. It's not something we can afford to do.
Dr. Johnston, any thoughts?
I see nothing wrong with us having the option to put proof of disconnect and lock out, at least for the district lock, to save the need for the second base rate being charged. Now, that might result in accounts covering the cost of putting that lock in, but it's no different than providing the rate or paying the rate to establish service. We're just paying a rate to de-establish service, or at least verify that that service is not connected. So I think that's something that we should definitely talk about going into the future. And I don't know if that's where the weight of the financial responsibility comes in on that, whether that's on our side as the district, or if we expect the customers to provide that on their end and we just furnish the lock. But I think that's the direction that we should consider going.
Yeah. I think, go ahead.
One of the things I think that the district is responsible for, and I don't have proof of this except in my own case, is that, when my daughter, put her house on our property, she actually went down and paid for the meter and everything. And I guess they didn't wanna take the time to put the meter in or whatever. But after 15 years, she finally went and said, you know, can I have my money back? And they argued with her, and this is pre the whole thing. And she, with a lot of fighting, got her money back, but she had originally paid for another meter. So, you know, it wasn't that we didn't want 2 meters. It's that, somebody, I think, was too lazy at the district to go down and put it in.
So my personal views on second dwelling charges is I wanna read and find out what our ordinances say, what our rules and regs say. So far, the only thing I found was that we would charge the fees, the 1081 fees, but I haven't found where it says we're actually gonna charge the base rate to these customers. So I have a problem with that. So that's why I do think we need to have a more concise manual or rules and regs that really addresses that. I personally do not like charging customers a second dwelling fee. I do not like it at all. When it was $20, maybe, but now it's, you know, people are paying $67 for the base rate. So I have a real problem with that. So one of the things that I asked the general manager to do was to find out how many of the numbers. So we have 102, which are two units. So what would that cost the district if we decided maybe to go for 3 or more units? That then you'll be charged, because then you've got, you know, rent, you know, something else is going on. But that equaled about 60. What did we say? $63,000 a year in reduced income by doing that. So I think it was. I base it on $60 a month, and of course that fee will just go up. So that's my feeling about it. You know, my neighbor had 3. She had not been having people in that home for years, the two homes, for years and years and years and years, and was paying the base rate for I don't know how long, and came down and just got it taken off. So I don't like what we've done to you, so that you know that. But again, we don't have a clear set, and with the new general manager here wanting more clear, concise, you know, instructions, that's what we were lacking. And so I agree, we have to work on something and direct you to, you know, work on something that's a little bit more.
Thank you, and I think I will take that as direction for us to work on it. We were talking about this earlier, that, you know, even that effective April 19, 2017 rules and regulations is out of date, so that needs to be updated. The definition of a second dwelling unit that has to be occupied for 6 months. Well, why do we have that in there? I mean, so there's just things like that. I think, again, back to Director Johnson's comment, you know, right now it's our expense to lock, and that's part of the cost of doing business.
Right.
But I think we do need more clarity on that. I will say though, in this case, I think you need to consider that you have a customer who is self-reported originally and then paid, and now is gonna self-report that person's moved out, they've shut it off, they've got a butterfly valve, and they shut it off. You know, to me, that kind of complies. There's nobody been in there, and so, you know, we probably shouldn't have it. Now,
How do you lock a butterfly valve though?
I don't know, you can let him speak. He's also disconnected. I'm only reporting on what I read. So I think in this case, based on our stuff, if the board wishes, we can put it in the notes, so that if he sells the property and somebody comes in to take over the account, we could have a note in there. This used to have a second unit. Ask the new owner, what are you doing on that second unit? I mean, so those are things that we can do. And our future software is gonna be much better as it relates to that. So I'll leave it to you. I do think you should
All right.
let.
Gary?
You'll have to go up to the podium though, my friend, you know.
My name is Gary Dombrowski. And there's no meter to that house, you know, and I can see if there was a meter, you'd charge me something for it. You know, if there's a meter there to that particular house, but there's no meter, and I've turned it off, there is no water going to that house whatsoever. The faucets do have water to them, but that's a typical thing that people have on their property, you know, faucets all over the place, water in the lawn, water, whatever, you know. And so that's belongs to the main house, all that stuff. But the water is turned off. I'm not using any water over there. I even disconnected the water cooler out of it, because it was on a separate line completely. I disconnected it, so no water is going to it. And I don't feel like I should be getting charged anything. Now, if there was a meter to it, then I can understand charging me for the meter, you know. I can understand it, but there's no meter going to it. When I bought the house, there was no charge for that house over there for the water. It wasn't. Until I had someone rent it. And when they rented it, I told them about it, and they started charging me twice for the, you know, 2 houses, which I understand fully. A little high, but I think I understand fully. And, right now, I'm in a real tight situation. I have a hard time with everything. In fact, I just took a job here. I'm 80 years old, and I had to take a job at Walmart as a greeter, so you just, I just think that it shouldn't be charged because there's no water going to it whatsoever.
Is there any way to put any kind of a lock on it?
No, but you can see it from the road. If the valve is like this and it's off, it's like this, it's on.
Are your intentions to rent it out at some time in the future?
No, it will not be rented out now, because I'm up for sale and I may have a buyer for it. You know, I don't know, I'll find out pretty much Friday, because that's when they're coming to look at it.
Your whole house, you mean, Gary?
And I'm selling everything. Yeah. And, but if I was gonna stay there, you know, I just don't think I should be charged for nothing. It'd be like me, you know, I've done welding for you people years ago. Like me still charging me for a weld, it's still holding a pipe together. You know, I mean, that's the way I look at it. You know, it's just not, you know, I'm not using it. There's no water coming out of it. You know, in fact, I don't even use those faucets over there. You know, there's no water coming out.
Any questions from the board for? I'm just gonna say Gary, because I'm not gonna be able to pronounce your last name. Any questions? Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it?
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, well, but hang tight, we're
Yeah,
gonna,
I gotta go.
oh, you gotta go?
Yeah,
Okay, well, Paul will let you know in the morning.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you
All right.
very much.
okay, thank you.
She's a beautiful lady. That's my neighbor. Real nice lady. Speak for it. Thank you. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care. So, so Paul, in light of the potential of the house selling, is there a way to put and flag that address if we grant him?
Based on the information that we received, it's entirely up to the board, but I think what we could do is we could request that he submits a photograph of his valve that is turned off. 2, that we inform him that there will be a note on this account, so that when this account changes, the new owner will be provided a heads up that if that valve gets turned differently, you know, or whatever, they're gonna get a second unit charge. And that we could then even say that the, based on it not being locked, you're gonna get it anyway, or something, I don't know, something like that. But remember, we still have, if it sells on October first, and the new owner gets a tenant, technically, we aren't supposed to charge them until it's been lived in for 6 months.
Yeah,
According to our current rules.
yeah,
So to me, that seems like a reasonable accommodation in this case. It's not gonna really benefit him very much, maybe for a month.
yeah.
I would recommend that we waive that second unit charge.
You making a
And-
motion, you mean?
A motion?
Yeah,
That's
sure,
fine.
sounds good.
Okay. And make it effective immediately, because we're in meter reading right now for next month's billing. And that would then take it off of his bill right away,
Okay.
okay? And then direct the staff to note the account, so if it sells, that the next owner is notified of the potential for the charge. And as we work on this policy, whether it has to have a district lock or whatever, that they be informed that there is a policy change coming. Anybody want a second?
I didn't ask the public.
Oops,
Hang tight.
okay,
We won't have our motion yet.
I'll pull it back.
No, you can have your motion, you can have a second, then you
Yeah.
can have the public.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I say something? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that Gary is an honorable man, but if he sells his house, is the next guy gonna be as honorable? I mean, we can say, well, if you open that latch, you're gonna get charged. Well, who knows if that is a rare man that reports himself. And, you know, I have a house and another house on one meter, and we get charged twice. I think that if he sells the house, that the second charge goes on.
That could be the note.
that could be,
Or,
yeah.
or let's say he turns the water, or say the new people turn the water back on, but nobody's back there. Or let's say they got 20 kids and they put 3 kids back there. Do they, 3, teenagers? Do they get charged for that?
Well, they're occupying the residence.
They're occupied. My
Whether-
son lives in
whether
my
it's a
other
separate
residence,
household
and
or
I
not.
pay.
Yeah.
My thought on it is, if we make the exception here, we have multiple directors that are sitting here with 2, base charges as well.
Multiple, just 2.
Right, okay. So we do have multiple. Is this a case-by-case basis? In the meantime, as we work on
I
this,
don't
or does it
want it that
become a
way.
slippery slope of anybody who has 2 base rates having just cause, at least if they can prove that it's not occupied? In the meantime, as we're hammering out the new doctrine on this topic, I have no problem. I sympathize with him and what he's gone through. I think he is an honest man. I think he's an honorable man. I appreciate that. I don't have a problem making a case-by-case exception in that regard, but I think that we need to look at doing that for others if they do choose to come forward at this time. And in the meantime, hammer out policy in the next month.
And I think we can direct the general manager to do that on a case-by-case form. I hate to have somebody though take a long time to have to come to the board to get approval for that. So can we do it on a case-by-case and you're comfortable with the direction so far?
Yeah, I think a modification which says we waive the base rate, we put a note on the account, when the new owner comes in, we institute the second base rate unless there's proof of lockout or disconnection or whatever, which is what our current is. And that's clear, and that is, if we have 101 more come in, we can, well, do you have a butterfly fly? Can you show us a picture? Can you tell, I mean, those are all things that we would be able to do while we're creating a policy. I think so.
I would think that we would need to say, yeah, if you have proof of, or ask us because they have a gate valve on it, it's gonna be a lockout. I think we have to have solid proof that it was, that it's not running.
Not, definitely the best is to have a district lock so that the district would have to unlock it, so that
Yeah.
we would then know if it's.
How can you tell that there's water going to another home? I don't understand that. How do you determine that?
Well, I think what he has is a gate valve,
What do you have?
a gate valve.
What
I
do you
do
have?
too.
What's a gate valve?
Gate valve is just,
Either brass or PVC that you turn on and off.
Turn on and off.
and when it's in line with the,
It's
pipe,
on.
it's on. When it's this way, it's
90 degree.
blocked.
It's
off.
usually just a little lever handle,
Right.
like on your hot water
But
heater.
how do you know it's not to the main house?
I have one separate from my main house.
So do I.
I have
Are you
a
talking
4-inch line that comes
photographic
in.
evidence?
Yeah.
Branches to two separate ones.
But it's easily,
Defer to customer honesty at that
It's-
point.
it's easily opened and closed, so
Oh, yeah.
unless the district would put a lockout on it, it could say, sure, it's off, till they just, it's on.
Okay, let's just deal with Mr. Gary.
Yes,
and-
deal with,
Oh, so, open for public discussion, if anybody would like to come up and speak.
Chairman, the ball valves shut the water off immediately. Well, you don't wanna do it
Unless they
immediately, you
leak.
get a water hammer, but you turn that handle, a little lever handle, and it shuts. It works a lot more efficient. The old gate valves that the government installed with our government installed meters, which was a failure, rusted, and they never did shut all the way, especially if there was a lot of dirt in the line or there'd been some repairs. And, old history, previous manager, you may not find an ordinance clear back, let's say, 1980, because they didn't just shut off the valve, they damaged it. I have documentation. And 3 years ago, we started with the Proposition 218 meetings because of the RCAC. It was gonna be imposed upon all the customers out here. And we started fighting it with our protest letters. That was, before that, it was an ag fee and an M&I fee. We didn't have a base rate. And in the course of all those meetings, that was brought up and it was imposed or put into action, and the board voted it in to have a base fee. And with raises every year, for what, $1.04, went up $1.04 every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes,
And
Colleen?
I just have a question, how long is this base rate going on? I know it was wasn't it for 5 years?
excuse
3 years
me,
ago.
name,
How long?
name for the record.
So Colleen?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Welcome in.
Yeah.
So, how long do we have this base rate? How many more years do we have this for?
It's for 5 years, and
Okay,
so it got passed in 2021, so probably 2025, we have to institute a new one.
And I remember being on the board back then, and we would get upset when 2, 3, 4 trailers were on property, and that's when we thought of this idea. We need to start charging these people on a monthly basis. Now, they're obviously using more water, so that's gonna cost more, right? But at the $60 a pop, I'm against it. Sorry, that's just the way I feel. And I feel maybe we can make a thing to say if there's more than 2 or more than 3, but $60 for each one plus the water they use? I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of against it, so that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
I got squeaky shoe. Dennis, Ocean. When, we started studying, Proposition 218, we felt that, it was saying that you can't charge a bigger amount than what the cost is. And I don't think it costs double to serve one single, water.
Dwelling.
So, I'm against it.
Thank you.
At the current base rate, the 102 meters would, it generates about 70,000 a year at the 57 level.
And I've got one more thing to add. So I've got another residence in Anderson, my bill hasn't been over $30. We can use as much water as we want. So that just, it's just, I just don't even understand it.
There are certainly a lot of rules and regs and things that,
Government fees.
yeah, fees that we have that make things a little costly.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, just a couple quick things, real quick. The use, under Prop 218, there is a cost of service. In other words, what is the complete cost? So you're talking about the cost of Whiskeytown Lake, Muletown, North Boosters, 100 miles of pipeline, and all of the employees that does to service it to get you that 1-inch line to your property. That's basically what the base rate is. And then the water that runs through it, that's your usage rate, and that obviously has a more yearly and different kind of cost structure to it. It's pretty basic way that works.
my understanding, the water is, usage is, we can only charge what it costs, and you don't recoup anything else off of it, so.
That is one of the major things that changed from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s when Prop 218 came in.
Okay, any other concerns from the floor? Thank you for your comments. Okay, so we have a motion, from Director McVeigh on the floor, has been presented, I don't know what the right terminology is.
Yeah, we've got a motion, and can I just quickly say, for this individual, waive the base rate immediately on the second unit, put a note on the account, slight modification since he first mentioned it, for the new owner that that base rate will be reinstituted until there's proof of compliance with whatever our policy is by that time. That's kind of in short. Is that okay?
That's the motion.
Okay.
Yep, okay. So do I have a second to that motion?
What he said.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Director Johnston seconds the motion. All those in favor, say aye. Motion carried. And you'll contact him tomorrow?
Actually, Kayla will, because it's all good news, and it's better to talk about it. No, we'll call, we'll get a hold of it for sure. And we'll get rid of the letter that I have.
All right, so we have appointment to district committees, go back to B, discussion and action, so.
Well, Madam Chair, it's really up to the board, but I took the opportunity for this item. Number one, we obviously have a newly appointed director. We have some vacancies on a couple of our committees that if the board wishes, might take this opportunity to fill. You'll notice on the second page that I have listed for each committee, community members. So as you may recall, in our response and up to the grand jury report, as well as the updated general administrative policies, the board decided to have members of the community. So I just have this in here as a draft. It's a very preliminary draft application. And I'd like the board's feedback on that application. They don't have to do it now. They can take it home and scratch it up and send it to me. But also a little thought on some timing as it relates to community members. So again, it could be that we open up for applications in November, due by December, for appointment in January for a 1-year term. Kind of seemed logical to me, but if the board wants to do it differently than that, that's fine.
That's how I have it in my notes as a suggestion.
That's what I was thinking too, so we're all.
Serve one calendar year, not a
Yeah.
fiscal year.
So I will on Facebook just let people know that we've got this application available then and that they can apply to be on a committee, finance or ag.
Are you saying that you didn't find any typos or editorial things?
No, I didn't. That's a first. I did not.
Wow.
You want me to go back over it?
Well, like I said, go over it at your leisure, send us your updates and notes. This may look vaguely familiar, this is very similar to the application to be a board member, just kind of cut it down and made it a little bit different. And actually put the committee descriptions on the back and have a spot where they circle what committee they might be interested in. And then if the board's okay with that timing, we'll work on getting it posted and coordinate and put on Facebook, we'll put it in a newsletter
Okay.
so that people can.
The only thing I would want to clarify is that we're going to allow 2 community members to serve on the standing committees. But I'd like to see multiple applications so that we can review and maybe interview and select some people on an annual basis. If they want to serve again, they've got to reapply.
Yeah, if you look at the membership appointment thing that we
Yeah.
have, it has just 2 community member slots, so. But one of the things on that for the assignment sheet, I thought Pam was appointed to planning and steering when she came on board in June or July, weren't you?
I think there was.
Yeah,
I don't
so
remember.
I think I forgot to research it.
Well, at the time,
It had been.
Director Lincoln and Director Fuss were
Yes.
primary members of the Planning and Steering Committee. And I could not find any notes that Director Beaver would have been assigned as alternate, but
Well,
if you want to assign her to the Planning and Steering membership vacant now, that would be great.
You're right.
there was, I don't think we replaced Director Fuss.
Okay.
So we still have that spot open as a regular member, and then you still as the alternate.
So, Director Johnston,
Yes, ma'am.
what are your feelings on being on any of these committees?
I have pretty keen interest on being on the agriculture committee.
Okay. Let's slot him in there.
I agree.
And then,
It'd be nice to have a second.
I didn't realize it was just you when we were
Yeah.
speaking last week.
so, do you have any interest to be an alternate for any of these other ones?
I'll be an alternate for the planning and steering if it's available. It looks like we have alternates filled in throughout, so.
I can take my name off.
No.
No problem.
Well, you should be heading something. Of course, you got JPIA,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. We'll put Logan down there for the alternate.
And she's.
And then who's gonna be the second on that?
Yeah, Pam, you're good for the second, so Pam.
Okay.
And then,
Can we plug in an alternate on the EAGSA? Only because of the possibility I might be out of town. And there'll be a meeting in November. And I'm recommending that our chair fill that spot, since she has attended multiple meetings.
yes, I have.
And it's fairly up on what's happening.
But if I'm your alternate, I don't sit up there, do I?
No,
If I'm not available, you do.
but if he's not available.
Yeah, if he's not
Yes,
available.
That's
yeah.
the only reason to have the
Oh, okay.
alternate.
All right, I'm okay with that if everybody else is okay with that.
I don't plan on missing anything, but life happens.
Madam Chair, my suggestion is we just get one motion, and that the motion include the appointment of Director Johnston on the Agriculture Committee, Director Beaver on the Planning and Steering Committee, and Director Johnston as an alternate to the Planning and Steering Committee, and Chair Fickus as the alternate on EAGSA.
Yes.
I so move.
Any comments from the floor regarding those?
I second it.
All right, we have a motion to accept, by Director McVeigh, to accept the membership and representation assignments, second by Director Beaver. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? No, motion carried.
All right, just to the board, we're gonna go with that schedule, as I mentioned, and, if you have any edits to the application, give them to me within the next week. All right, next up is the audit report, auditor planning letter, and the OPEB GASB 75. So for the audit and auditor, Horton, McNulty, and Saturn, they completed our FY '21 audit in December of 2022. Then April, they started the FY '22 audit. You might recall, we confirmed the engagement letter. They sent us the same planning basic letter that they sent for the previous audit. Their recommendation is that the board receive this, so I did. I put this on the finance committee. They've seen it, and it's on your agenda. And the only other thing I would mention is because the FY '22 is still the old Fry's, Bucks accounting system, they're still working on it. They had hoped to have it done by May of this year, but it's looking more like November of this year. And then once they get that done, they'll turn right around and start working on FY '23. The other thing they did is they submitted on behalf of the district the reporting that was necessary to the state controller's office. So that's that item. It's just an update. It's really more an FYI. Any comments?
So I don't know if I'm in the right spot, so tell me if I'm not. On the letter to the board of directors, audit report and audit planning letter,
The memorandum.
the memorandum, okay, says the new MOU calls for the district to work on alternatives for current and future active employees related to retiree medical.
That's the next portion.
Yeah, that's the next item.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. If there are any questions or comments on that little update, I will jump to the next item. So the next item is called the other post-employment benefits GASB 75 requirements.
Yeah.
So the district has on its professional services contract with Cloud Watts. They do a lot of GASB 75 reporting, and they accomplished this one. And just as a reminder, this is for the retiree medical benefit that the district provides its employees and retirees based on the adopted vesting schedule. So this has nothing to do with CalPERS retirement. It has nothing to do with any of that other stuff. It's purely retiree medical. And again, other post-employment benefits could be other things that people get when they retire. There's hardly anything else that I could ever think of. Maybe they get the truck they drove in for 20 years. That would be considered other post-employment benefit. But in this case, it's retiree medical. So the districts are required to have this report, that have this item because we're supposed to identify our long-term liability for this cost over a period of 30 years. It's also to be reported to, in this case, the where the district has a trust fund that is supposed to help them with our long-term liability. And that's where it gets confusing because a wing of CalPERS actually handles our trust fund. So that kind of gets a little confusing. But we're required to have a report to identify our long-term liability of this benefit, and it's reported by the district, in this case, at June 30th of 2020.
2023?
2023.
2023, and am I correct, the long-term liability is at 570,000?
No, it's 1 point, it's 1.6-ish million, somewhere around there.
Are you talking on the fiduciary net position of?
We're looking on page 3.
1.57?
On page 3, Our total OPEB liability is $1.931 million.
Uh-huh.
Our trust fund, which they report here as our net position, is 1.36 million.
Right.
So our net liability is 570,000, not the
Right.
total liability.
Oh, okay.
And so, you can see the different impacts. You can see where our expense is actually fairly low for that fiscal year, which is good news. To Director Beaver's comment, in our MOU, it calls for the district to work on alternatives for current and future active employees related to retiree medical. And the reason for that is got a lot of different things on it, but before I get to that, I want to just speak to our retiree medical actually has a vesting schedule, and if you look on page 21, you can see what that vesting schedule is. First of all, it has in it the maximum benefits. So there's this 90/40, but basically for 2022, the maximum would be $816 for a single. That's the maximum monthly benefit.
What page are you on?
21 of the report. Page 21 of the
Reporting
report.
information?
What's that?
Reporting information?
Supporting information, halfway down, benefits provided, preventative,
okay.
Thank you.
First bullet point. Maximum benefit.
Got it.
That just gives you the maximum monthly that the district would pay out to a retiree for their medical benefit. The second bullet, each retiree's vested percentage is based on his or her total years of PERS service. So the vesting percentage is 50% after 10 years of PERS membership, and it increases 5% each year to a total of 100% after 20 years of service.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an employee that works for the district for 20 plus years and retires for the district is on the hook to pay 100% of these numbers, the single, two-party, or family numbers, every month for the rest of their life.
Now, does it not adjust once they go on to Medicare
Of course,
at 65? But we still pay.
but we still pay, and obviously, whatever, if the Medicare amount for a single is less than the 816, we pay all of that new amount.
Right.
Same thing with two-party. So that's our vesting schedule. We have currently 7 retirees that we pay every month on. And so, and that's at a cost of close to $90,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this report wraps up into it. So the good news is, in 2011, the district funded, they took the liability at the time, and they said, oh, this is a long-term liability, and the district put a significant amount of money into a trust fund to then help pay for that cost down the line. And so we have $1.3 million in there, which is pretty good. So it's fairly significant when you consider that's like 70% of our unfunded liability we actually have a trust fund for.
Mm-hmm. And we're earning, what, about 5% on that trust fund?
Yeah.
About 97,000 a year?
Yeah, give or take, it does have that. A couple of issues that this report has. You might notice again on page 2, back to page 2 of the report, at the bottom, it says this is for the fiscal year end of 23, so that's where you get your cost.
Mm-hmm.
But their measurements are as of June 30th of 2022. And then they have your measurement period, right, which is that fiscal year. Right. They even have a valuation date back then. So you might recall that in the last 6 months, we have 70% turnover of employees in the district, all new employees. So
Correct.
This report is not very accurate, so they're actually now doing some preliminary reports as it relates to that. Back in 2011, when the district committed to putting money into that trust fund. The employees agreed in that MOU to pay for a portion of their cost contribution to that unfunded liability. So on a yearly basis, all active employees, though they're not retired, they do have a cost or an impact to that unfunded liability. At the time, sometime after that, it was around $40,000, and you can run the numbers. You divide that by 12 employees, divide it by 26 pay periods, comes out to $150 per pay period. Give or take, and eventually they just landed on that. So, all employees at the district currently contribute $150 per pay period to their future benefit. The problem is, since we have 7 employees, all new, none of which have any CalPERS time, $300 a month, give or take, is a super irritating thing, because the concept of them staying here for 10 years, that's what they would have to do just to get 50% of their medical. And when you consider their ages, it's fairly unlikely. So that's why the union wanted it in the MOU to look at some alternatives. And so, and we couldn't solve that problem in the 3 months it took to negotiate an MOU. So we said, yeah, give us a year. And then the McLeod Wax folks said, yes, there's lots of alternatives, but you can't really look at those and their cost impacts until we've done this report as of June 30th of 2023. So that's why we're doing this. And I'm pretty convinced that this is the first time the board or the community has seen this report. So I thought it would be very valuable to actually have it on here so everybody knows these are things that this gray hair keeps crawling up here. That's why. To deal with, okay? So some of the alternatives, and where I've been in Sonoma County and Lake County and other places, one alternative is that if a district doesn't want to have any more retiree medical obligation, they could get rid of offering their employees CalPERS medical insurance. And they'd have to go somewhere else, Anthem Blue Cross or wherever else it may be. That's a very expensive process, and if you're in the Bay Area, it's sometimes worth it because you have Kaiser access, or you have, Anthem Blue Cross. You usually have 3 or 4 different HMOs, and so that gives your employees a lot more options, and then you can do other things like retiree medical savings accounts, stuff like that. So the advice I've received from many is not really worth doing that. So as long as you have medical insurance to CalPERS employees that is a CalPERS insurance, you will always have to offer some manner of retiree medical benefit. So what a lot of districts do is they say, well, we're not going to go with this vesting schedule of if you've been there 20 years, you get 100% or some manner in between. Doesn't matter how long. You've been here 10 years or 20 years, we're going to pay $500 a month. That's it. Not this $800, not this $1,500, and the employee has to take care of the rest of that. Usually that's enough to take care of Part B Medicaid. So that's one alternative. And that, when you run this, that caps the district's long-term liability to a set amount. So it changes from a defined benefit to a defined contribution. So there are some other alternatives. You could just say, we're only going to pay whatever Medicare Part B is for that year, and then everything else is the employees. The obligation the district takes on is as that amount goes up, then you're tied to that amount. But if you do a dollar cap, you'll always know what that is. Another alternative is that the CalPERS has a required minimum. Currently this year it's $155, significantly less than the $816 on the lowest amount there, right? The union is somewhat interested in the required minimum program. Because what that would do is then you would have, the employees and districts would have, resources to actually set up each employee with a retiree medical savings account. So instead of $150 pay period coming out and going to this trust fund, maybe $50 a pay period goes into a retiree medical savings account, and they decide to go to another job in 5 or 6 years, they can take that with them. And then the district actually is no longer obligated for any of that benefit if they leave. But at least they have something that they've invested into it. The district, if it saves money, could maybe join and put some money into that. The challenge is, unlike anything else in CalPERS, retiree medical, when you make a change, it impacts everybody. In CalPERS retirement, when you make a change, it only impacts going forward. So for the medical, if we went to a required minimum or if we went to a cap, how we dealt with our current retirees, because the district is obligated both morally and legally to pay what they're currently paying. We can't go to them and say, we know that you, under all of these ordinances, all this vesting schedule, are getting 100% of your medical paid for every month, but we've changed going forward, so now you're only getting $150 a month, or you're only getting $500 a month. We would have to figure out a way to make sure that we stick to that obligation. And remember, it would be just for those retirees until they were no longer able to access that benefit.
Do we have any currently now that are under age 65?
No, not now. 2 months ago, yes, we still had 1 or 2. I believe they're all 65 or older. So again, that's just a quick, I know nothing's quick, and if you have any insomnia issues, please feel free to read this. It will definitely cross your eyes. It's very challenging. I know just enough to know what I'm talking about, but not enough to know the answer to any of your questions.
Did you have any questions?
I think he's covered most of them, but we're probably gonna want options to discuss. And possibly, an idea of how the employees feel, because this is something that's gonna be a benefit to them, really. Because if they pay their $300 a month, basically, it's $3,900 a year they're paying for their share of it. If they leave early, they walk away from all that money, which I don't see the reason they should have to. So if there was some sort of retirement, HSA, medical savings account, whatever it is, and if the numbers worked right, maybe we contribute a little bit to that instead of, down the line. I could see, so I kind of like to direct, with the chair's approval, that you research some of this and bring back to us some options on what we can do. And maybe even get some feedback from the employees and how they feel about it.
Yeah.
So that we can make a better decision for both them and the district.
I could just report to the board that the 3 basic options that I just broached, a set dollar amount, I just picked $500 a month, it could be $300 a month, it could be whatever. Set dollar amount, a set amount that's tied directly to whatever the Medicare Part B is, or the required minimum with the HSA options. I've asked McLeod Watts to give, with our current pool of employees, some of these scenarios.
And what the impact on us, obviously the union wants to reduce the impact on the employees, but if we went that route, what's the impact to the district, to the customers? Those are some of the things I'd like to see.
Well, I think, first of all, I cannot speak for the employees. I can only speak to what I've heard from the union representative. The $150 per pay period for a benefit that's unlikely to be attained, especially by those employees that watched a couple of our previous employees leave for other jobs. One who actually was here for 7.5, almost 8 years. Literally walked away from $30,000 contributed to this. Now, they went to another CalPERS agency, the city of Reading. They have their own retiree medical program that they'll probably be part of, but left a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
It is a major irritant to most of the employees that work here right now. That's why we want to find some sort of equitable solution. And also for me, as a manager who wants to retain these employees, I think there's a reason for us to want to deal with it. You do have to realize we have some longer-term employees that may or may soon qualify for the current benefit. They may not want to take the new options, which is another reason why I think we have to both morally and legally be obligated to take care of our current retirees and the current ones probably that qualify for it.
2 or 3.
And now, I think I've heard from the union, and I just got yesterday or today a proposal from the union on this that I haven't had a chance to read or analyze, but it's similar to what I've just described, or what actually Director McVeigh described. What I don't think everybody fully is cognizant of is that this is their contribution to their portion of the OPEB 30-year liability. That's broken out into their 1 year as an active. So if we no longer take the $150 per pay period, the district is losing or has to cover that $40,000 to $50,000, right? So having us contribute to their HSA, we need to see that we've saved money in another place.
Yes.
And so that's part of why we have to run that. I can't, you can't just walk away from it. On the other hand, the other challenge we have is how to do this that's compliant with law, right? I mean, so there may be a bunch of ordinances and things like that, so we may not be able to implement this by January 1, which is what I hope for, but we may. So there may be some other alternatives. I would assert that if you, one of the things the district could do is say, which is not an alternative we've studied, but if you are not qualified for the benefits, remember the qualification is 10 years in CalPERS, 5 years with the district, then you shouldn't have to take your $150 per pay period to pay for your impact, because you don't really have an impact, because you haven't qualified for it.
Right.
But you could take a portion of that, put it into an HSA. If you leave, then you take that HSA with you. If you stay and you become qualified, then you have to sign something that a portion of that HSA goes to the pool because now you qualify for the benefit. So that could be an alternative. Between 0 and 10 years of employment here, they have something that they can, if they left, they could take with them.
For understanding, is part of the district's contribution then based on payroll?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see in there.
Yeah, I have, and I thought I understood it, but I wanted to make sure everybody heard that. And because we're fully staffed now, our payroll has gone up, so we can expect our net position to change because of that. So if they choose to go away from the 300 employees, are we still gonna have to pay that $300 a month for them?
Potentially. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying is if we as the district say we're willing to take on that cost and not take the 150 per pay period, then we're not sure we can afford to also then, on top of that, contribute money to your HSA.
Are they automatically enrolled in OPEB when they start work here?
Yeah.
So it's an automatic. It's not like, well, I'm not vested in, so I don't have to pay it.
Currently, every employee the day they start, me, Kayla, and everybody else.
Okay.
Any questions, Dan? Logan, any questions?
This might be somewhat cynical and maybe not possible at all, but if we aren't totally positive that these employees are gonna make it to the point of being vested, is there any way that we couldn't just fund this through the trust fund? and trust that the interest
Yeah.
accrued over time would cover those that do actually make it to the point of collecting full benefit.
Again, that would be something that we were looking to them to report for us. You know, there were a couple of years in which the trust fund really made enough money to cover that cost, but having those projections is hard to say. But a lot of it is, you're putting, the district is supposed to, and did for a while, hasn't always done it in the last couple of years, 5 years, 4 years maybe, put money into the trust fund on a regular basis. And then every year, it says, okay, our retiree medicals, in other words, both those that have vested and take their benefit,
Right.
and those that are retirees, it costs us $100,000. I'm just gonna use a round figure. So we pull money out of the trust fund to pay for that.
Right.
And so that whole trust fund is set up so that the balance between what you put in and what you take out over 30 years pays for all the projections of it.
Right.
And that'll change, again, that's why it's hard to answer your question. Yes, it's supposed to work that way, but we also have to know with our new employee mix, we have a completely different age mix now. We also have, you know, years of service and all the rest of that stuff.
Yes, it changes the formulas a lot.
So one of the questions I had was on page 21, and it was that down below that bullet point that you were talking about. The maximum benefits are set annually,
Yeah.
the 190 formula cap. So one of our employees, retirees that was below 65, what were we paying him for his medical? Were we paying him what the platinum plan was for a few years? Or was he only getting the 1983 or the 1548? Because I thought we had one retiree that we were paying a lot. Doesn't he fall under that cap? So were we overpaying him for his medical?
I don't know. I think back in between 2018 and 2022, the district paid whatever the premium for their employee was, because that's what they thought 100% meant. It was 100% of the premium.
Oh, that doesn't make me happy.
No. We might wanna investigate that and,
So we were,
recapture some of that overpayment, if we can.
so it was only supposed to be 90%, not 100%, right? Is to the 100/90 formula cap?
Well, regardless of that, no, so it's confusing. If you reach your 100% at 20 years, and you were covering a family,
Right.
the max the district would pay is $1,983 of your premium.
Right.
I believe the practice of the district for a number of years, based on past management, they read the 100% as whatever the premium was, they
Whatever they
paid
chose.
100% of the premium. And if, in one case of an employee that had less than 100%, they paid whatever that percentage is of that premium, not a percentage of this.
Whatever retirement medical.
Did that
shows.
practice stop in 22?
No, it hasn't stopped until.
Everybody hit 65.
Yeah.
Well, thank God they hit 65.
Yeah, exactly.
So very disappointing, but
Yes.
that's just typical.
So going forward, we're aware of what has to be or should be paid, and that won't happen again.
We want to make it equitable for both sides, the employees as well as the district.
Page 25. In the middle of the page, retired participants, existing medical plan elections are assumed continue until the retiree's death. One retiree recently waived coverage. We assumed a 25% chance that this retiree will re-enroll. Why are we assuming a 25% chance, and why, if they waived it, coverage, do we have to have, why do they get to re-enroll?
Well, when an actuarial does a report, they have to have some consideration of potential impacts. And, the only thing I know of on that one is that's what they put it at. They don't have any other explanation on it.
Okay. Let me just double check, I think that was all I had.
Because
Okay.
in actuarial world, they always try to look at kind of worst case scenarios, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Highest cost impact. Well, there's no action on this. This is more an educational opportunity, and I know, and I knew I was stepping into like more questions than answers, but I'm also pretty aware that it's unlikely anybody has seen these in the past. And these have been done every 2 years for the district.
Well, but that's keeping with our philosophy of being transparent about everything. So I applaud you for making us know it, because we're not hiding anything.
Yeah. There's no reason to do anything other than accept and know what is. And we can plan for it.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully the next two will be reasonably quick. Water usage revenue and rate ordinance review. This is something I provided the Finance Committee. So first of all, I'm going to start at the end first, because for the rate ordinance in particular, you might recall we had a rate sheet from the Bureau back in February of this year. It included 2 restoration charges, $12.02 for irrigation water, $24.05 for M&I water. The Bureau is a federal agency, so they go on the federal calendar. So those 2 numbers are updated as of October 1st to $13 for irrigation and $25.99 for M&I. And as I reported to the Finance Committee, I gave them just a quick thing on our little rate sheets. Literally makes no impact on our costs. It's fractions of pennies on a per unit basis, so there's no reason to change it at this point. It'll get captured in the next time we have any rate updates. Because the next thing I'm going to mention, so for the community's purposes, has a way bigger impact to the district's revenue. So one of the things that I've been interested in is, now that we've hit the 6-month mark in August of a water year from the Bureau, is to start really looking at our water loss and how that's impacting our revenue. So I'm basically doing a water loss analysis, and I'm auditing from the treatment plant to the North Booster Station, where we have meters, one going out the cemetery and Iowa School and the rest coming into the district. We obviously read our meters, we send out our bills, and then we collect revenue. So I'm auditing from the treatment plant to the meter, from revenue in, back through the meter, back to the treatment plant. I put an example in here. Now, one caveat is, we're reading meters right now. So we report to the Bureau on a 30-day month period, but we read meters on the 20th or the 21st or the 22nd of the month. So you can't look at it on a per month basis with great confidence, but over a 6-month period of time, you can see it play out. But just for an example, in July, we reported to the Bureau 297 acre feet of M&I through the treatment plant. 197 of it we paid the Bureau cost, 100 of it we paid the McConnell water cost. We received almost $40,000 in revenue in July, which equals 173 acre feet. So we got paid for 173 acre feet of M&I water. That left us 123 acre feet of water short between what we reported to the Bureau and what we actually received in cash. And on the irrigation or ag side, we reported the Bureau 116 acre feet. The revenue that came in was about 60 acre feet worth of revenue, so we were 56 acre feet short. So again, that's just 1 month. That's an anomalous month. That was a pretty significant month. And I showed this to the board, to the finance committee. So what I've done that is for the whole 6 months. So this is March through August. And in August, parenthetically, we actually received payment for more water than what we went through the treatment plant. Yeah. Guess what? We just looked at the August activity sheet. We received $102,000 worth of delinquent payments over the last 8 weeks. So that was extra payments. So that's why you can't just look at the audit from that direction, but it balances things out. Couple of things that we've noticed. The difference between what we report to the Bureau that went through the treatment plant and what goes through the booster stations is about 35 acre feet over 6 months. So we think we're losing about 6 acre feet a month in the conduit.
Is that the conduit or the backwash ponds?
Conduit.
Conduit.
But Bill is, and his new guy Brandon, they are sharpening their pencils. They're doing a bunch of calculations. They think maybe 2 or 3 acre feet of this is the backwash and recycle pond side of things. So again, not a lot, it's pretty de minimis water loss in there, but a little bit of water loss. But the difference between what went through just for round numbers, 1,376 acre feet gross went through the meters at the North Booster Station. What went through customer meters and was billed was 1,109 acre feet. So we lost 266 acre feet over 6 months between what went through the boosters and what went through customer meters. That generated bills, and then you've got revenue. So we've got a 20% loss between the North Booster meter and the customer meters, and we got another 12% loss between what we bill and what we receive. Now, still to be done. We've had a bunch of leaks, some of them on 16-inch pipes. So we gotta go back and figure out like how much water ran out of there for how long, and you can just run your gallons per minute and you can do a lot of calculations. So we can figure out what some of the leaks are. Well, one of the other things too, in my experience, is that we need to look at, as maybe a capital thing, is we need to get our zones metered. So in other words, everything that's going out China Gulch Road or whatever should have a meter on it so that you can test between your booster station and that meter, and then between that meter and customer meters. Because at some point, we got to find out where the leaks are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're underground leaks, small ones.
There's got to be some of them somewhere, and again, as your manager who's paying bills and paying wages, it's pretty hard to lose 20% of your water before it even gets to the meter, and then another 12% between the meter and what the revenue comes in. Because remember, what we report to the Bureau that goes through the treatment plant, that's what we pay the Bureau. Yeah. $57 an acre foot for M&I, and somewhere, $52 or $53 for irrigation water. So this is really more for your information. The finance committee wanted the board to hear this because I gave this presentation to them before. We still got a lot of stuff to do, but
as bad as that sounds, there is a plus side to that. We can take that water loss as an example and use it for, grant funding to replace some of the pipe and whatnot, because the state's very interested in conservation. So, maybe that is one of those things that will help us get grants. The other aspect would be, we have to calculate in, when we buy McConnell water, it's not 57 acre, but it's 250. And when we lose 200 acre feet that way, that's significant.
So, yeah, there's a couple items. One, true, we do, in our, maybe next year, for next year's water year, most districts, most places I've been at, you have in your usage rate somewhere between 5 and 8% water loss calculation. So
Yes.
so you're actually collecting enough to pay for that cost of that water. So we need to get a handle on what that could be in the future. Yes, it would be great for a grant. I cannot go to the state and say, I'm losing 20% of my water, I need a grant. I gotta audit it, find out where it is, and say, it's this section of AC pipe that's causing my biggest problem. It's gonna cost $5 million to fix it, give me a grant, and you're gonna save all this water. Then they're really gonna be honest.
Yes.
And I would say that one of the things that Director Beaver had pointed, I think I reported before, to another district that's been very successful with grants, and that was one of the things they really recommended, was the state is really into giving grants to solving water loss problems.
Any questions from the board? Any concerns from the floor? Yes.
Part of that water loss could be the old government installed water meters.
Oh, yeah.
They lost a lot of water years ago. We got a lot of free water years ago.
Well, I'm sure it's meters. I think too, we talked about updating, getting rid of our 25-year-old customer billing software. I'm sure there's something in there, right? So there's a little bit in each one. It's little bits in the meters. A little bit's probably leaking underground somewhere that we can't see. A little bit of it's leaking, but it's all adding up, and that's
Could
part.
be salt creek or salt gulch.
Yeah.
That bulb and salt gulch.
Yep. Okay, Madam Chair, grants update.
Grants update.
So I think, the board's been, getting updates from me on a weekly basis with my emails. I've provided a little bit in the GM report, but I thought there would be some benefit to the board and the community to see that everybody wants us to get grants. The big thing is we have to implement the ones that we have if we're ever gonna get any more. The first one is our emergency electrical SCADA repairs south booster wells. This is a reminder, it's a $477,000 grant. They finally signed the funding agreement, so you can see your little current status here. They signed the funding agreement on July 26th of 2023. It's been designed. We've ordered a lot of the materials. We're really pushing this one hard because the money has to be, the project has to be done by the end of this year. So our completion date is November 30th is the plan. And so we're moving forward on it. We have submitted for reimbursement for $70,000 worth of costs, which is basically June, July, and August. We've got a lot more costs since then, as you've seen on our reports.
Yes.
But those we can only submit every month. Again, good project. This one facilitates our wells to work together, and also be under some SCADA controls. We're also putting in a flow meter from the wells into our booster station, so we have another point at which we're metering our water, so we can do a lot of work on that. The second one I report on, again, I hope I did a decent job writing this up, but the backwash ponds repair project. I gave you the funding agreement, the FEMA. This is the one to concrete line ponds 3 and 2 up at the treatment plant. We get some Cal OES/FEMA money from the car fire. It's a $5 million project, $3 million from the state, $2 million basically from Cal OES FEMA. There's one little editorial, that $410,000, that's actually a Cal OES supplement to the federal FEMA. mainly have this on the board's agenda to give you that update. You can read about it there. Since the funding agreement was signed in April, Pace Engineering has gone all out to get this thing designed. They've had meetings with the feds, they've had meetings with state agencies, they've had the regional board up there, they've talked all about it, they've looked at the environmental, they're trying to get it wired so that the design is completed by the end of this month. The plan is to put it out to bid in October, primarily because we believe we're gonna get our best bids in the winter, right? Because the job is to be done probably June, July, August of next year, because we gotta drain the pond, and we'll dry it out, then you concrete it, then you test it. So you're gonna do, and you can see here, design and bid here. So that bid award currently is scheduled to come to the board in December.
Is there a loan portion to that, those two grants?
Not currently.
Not currently. Let's hope there isn't.
There was at one time, but right now it's fully covered by these two grants. And then, so 2024 would be construction of Pond 3, 2025 construction of Pond 2 and finalizing. And so the next steps are finalizing that design, putting it out to bid, and Pace is gonna be handling all that, and they'll bring that before us. There is a distribution pipe replacement project, also known as the District System Improvement Project. This one does not have a funding agreement. The last I heard, it's about the district applied for a replacement of 6,000 feet of AC pipe, some valves, meter heads, and hydrants. I got a note from the state representative on this in April. I provided a bunch of information. That one is, you know, it's on desk number 15 of 35 at the state. You know,
That's the one we're paying that state fund dollar.
Yeah.
Into on our bills.
Well, yes, that and the other one. So the other one I reported to the board, which was the ARPA County funding in November of last year. The board, the Shasta County Board of Supervisors took $2 million of their ARPA allocations and allocated it to the water districts. I submitted to them what I call the water meter repair, meter reading automation, water loss prevention, customer conservation support program, which basically was to put the telemetry on all of our, as many of our meters as we can, so that we can drive by and read them and get our meter reading done in 3 days instead of 5+. Also, because those that are currently automated, we actually have some money in our budget to buy some to replace the meter telemetry that's, the batteries are running out. I had reported to the board that it was going to be a few $100,000. I just got last week, finally, after absolute, no communication from the county, a request to fill out the fund agreement, and the allocation is $260,000, so that's great. So our project is about $290,000, so of that, this will fund most of it, and I'll be filling that out and probably bringing it to the board for signature in October.
Will we use the budget money to cover that other 31,000?
It's already in the budget, we have 25.
Exactly. Okay.
The other thing I would just mention, I have brought to the finance committee's attention, so just for the community, you know, we all want grants are great, but the way the state works is you get bills for work done under the grant, you pay them out, you've seen them in activity reports, you then submit to the state for reimbursement for those expenses. The state takes anywhere from 30 days to 30 years to get you reimbursed. And so for a district that does not have any reserves right now, that's a really challenging thing. So there was some member of the board that mentioned that we had a line of credit, thought it was 100 and some thousand. Actually, Bill confirmed to me that it's $250,000, so we could potentially use that. One of the things on the Backwash Ponds project, you know, a $5 million project, and we're gonna get $1 million worth of bills at some point. I've instructed Pace to write into that the contractor, will have to, they'll have to write it into their bid that they got 120 days before they're gonna get paid. So they're gonna submit a bill, let's say, on June 1. We are gonna then submit it within 30 days to the state. The state, I was facetious on the 30 days to 30 years. They're supposed to pay you in 90 days. So that gives us time. And so basically the contractor will have to float a little bit of some of this, and we'll be able to use the line of credit to cover something. So I think we're gonna be able to make it work on that, but it's not gonna be easy, and the past practices of the district to use up its reserves on other things definitely makes these implementations more challenging.
So it's gonna be important to rebuild those reserves.
Yeah.
Going forward.
All right, that's it on that. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair, thank you to the board, thank you to the community for your indulgence to let me at least give you an update on some of those things. I want to just mention, you see my general manager's report. Our community member, Sandy Winters, mentioned at the last board meeting that the IGO community was interested in getting a hydrant at the school. If you didn't know, the district does serve some customers outside of the district, and there's the county transfer station, the Vets Memorial, the Veterans Cemetery, and the IGO school. And so I went over and bought some corn from Sandy Winters and kind of talked to the different folks at the IGO area just to kind of get a sense of what's kind of going on. As I've reported to the board, I've been to 4, now 5 IGO Ono Community Services Districts meetings, and decided last Tuesday to go to one of their meetings where they had 5 times the number of people there, and they all wanted to talk about this fire hydrant. So I just basically, first of all, they all want to know whether or not we were going to take them over. No, we're not interested in taking them over.
It's your district.
Not unless they invite us. We're not, we're here as a neighbor. We'll help you, you help us. My second message to them was, my customers are not going to pay for a hydrant outside of their district. So you should consider using Zog Fire settlement monies to pay for an engineer to give you an estimate, what it's going to take to put it in the hydrant. We think you probably should put the hydrant at the school where there's some more security there, so we don't have to worry about water theft. And then that engineering estimate can give you a cost, and then you can go get money, grant money, whatever else to put that in. Yeah, or ARPA money, right? So that was my message. I just wanted to let you know to the board, since it came up last time, that's what I'm doing. I have subsequently had a meeting with the county and the county supervisor that represents that area. Supervisor Garmin, and so I said the same thing to them, and to the supervisor. We're here as a good neighbor to help. Yes, we have a water line there. You got to pay. I already gave you an update on a lot of other things, but later we'll mention the shutoffs and stuff. But I just want to quickly mention, unfortunately Dennis Rosan left, but he turned us on to Nutrient Ag. That has, they're so big, they have 3 full-time meteorologists on staff. One of them that does the United States review. We've heard a lot about El Nino. There's a lot of hope that we'll have an El Nino year. Currently, these are just some little maps that I printed off. It is projected to be wetter than normal for October, November, December. It's projected to be normal for November, December, January, and then a slightly wetter for December, January, February. So basically, you might recall Don Bader from the Bureau said, as long as we get at least a normal year, the lake's going to be fine.
It's only down 42.5 feet. So the chances are we'll have full water allocation next year.
Yep. All right, that's the GM report. Any questions?
Nope.
Operations,
questions?
operations, yeah. Operations report, again, there's a mention here that delinquency progress total for the month of August, $102,000 collected, all because of Kayla's work and mostly Shannon's work, and just going after all of these delinquent accounts and actually sending them shut-off notices and a whole bunch of other things, so it's working. You might recall that moving that staff person, adding one more day and making them full-time at a yearly cost of about $30,000 to $40,000, so already well overpaid for that. But more importantly, I think the relationship we built up with the ship, or LEWAP as we call them, has been huge. They like us. I mean, they like, send us more people. You'll also I'll just mention that last month there were 172 accounts, 90 plus days, and it was $107,000. And so these numbers keep going down every month over the last 3 months that we've been going after this. Just on the treatment plant, one of the challenges, you'll just see our numbers as we ran through there for August, but starting in October, the Bureau is required to have some temperature monitoring for fisheries issues in the creek, and so they're changing where they're taking water out of the lake. So sometimes when they take it out of different pen stocks in the lake, all of a sudden we get a whole bunch more algae, and so Bill and his group is up there panicking to try to make sure you guys continue to get clean water. But we did overhaul the chemical injection pump. We completed the 2 new pump stations. And then they've been doing a lot of work getting as many people to look at their backwash ponds project. Operations, distribution side, I think most of you know we had a pretty significant leak at Fuzzy Lane on September 8th that broke at midnight. And then on the 12th, we had a big line break at Melinda and Olive. Did not wash out Chair Ficus's house, hallelujah, but it was a big one. Kind of amusing that we have a 14-inch line over there. We all were a little surprised, I was at least. I think that at some point, my big plan as part of our capital improvement plan will be to create more loops in the system so that, you know, kind of like you can isolate things more. So if you do have a leak, you're not shutting down the whole thing. I think that may have been potentially a loop plan to come back around towards here, but who knows?
Yeah, because I think there's only like 4 people on that line.
I know.
14-inch line.
What the heck?
Okay. I did have one question though. It was actually in the manager's report, so I can back up just a little bit. You mentioned that you had some trees out front cut down, and I know the woods have moved to the back. Are you planning on cutting, splitting it, donating it, putting it out for people to buy, just so the community is made aware of this?
Yeah, I mean, we've been a little bit too busy to figure out what to do with it.
And it needs the season anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Not really sure what the district has done in the past. It looks like for a lot of brush, we wait till we get a burn day and we burn the brush.
Yeah.
But there's obviously, I don't know, based on these 3 and another tree, there's probably a couple of cords potentially of wood. So it'd be nice if we could make it available to the community and maybe get somebody in here to do it. Or maybe we just do a swap where somebody gets one cord and the other cord we throw on trucks and take to needy people that need something. So.
Good.
It looks nicer.
Huh?
It looks nicer.
Does look a lot nicer, and I've been wanting to get those trees dealt with, and I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago, I reported to the board interest in that, and 2 days later, the PG&E line guy comes walking through and goes, you know, would you be all right if we cut down these trees? Where do I sign? On the committee's report, I just mentioned, as the chair already mentioned, we had a finance committee on September 12th. We're planning to have one on October 17th in preparation for the board meeting.
Is that what I said?
We said the 12th.
Yeah.
We're changing it to the 17th? I thought we had it on the 12th set. That's what I had on my calendar.
17th is what I have.
Okay,
See?
then I'm wrong.
I would like the record to note that that's the second time the chair has said you're right.
Well, it's gonna happen once in a while.
Hey, it's gotta happen. I know, that's why I want to record
Okay,
it. That's it. Any
All right.
board member items?
board member items?
Just one, the Ag Committee, still trying to finalize work on the supplemental water program. Now that I have a second on the committee, I'll get him up to speed, and I'm hoping to present it to the board in either November or December. I'm hoping we don't need it next year. I wanna get it done now while we don't need it, so it's in place if a year or two, whatever, down the line.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things the Ag Committee is working on. And then Dennis is gone, but he had emailed me about some possible grant money for our area. I will copy you on that and let you look into it.
Sounds good.
Director Beaver? No. Director Logan? No. Director Johnston?
No.
Actually, one more thing, because I'm on the EAGSA. I forwarded an email to both our general manager and our chair, Member Fickus, that a couple months ago reported that in round 2 of the grant funding for the EAGSA, that we had not qualified. The scoring ran us 1 point short of getting funding. And then we were asked to submit letters, and we were told after that period that we were not getting any. Well, I got an email to the fact that the EAGSA would be getting $2.38 million. So it will mitigate any costs that we will have going forward. I'm assuming for just a few years on the annual cost of that, saving us 30, maybe 40,000 a year. So they were able to secure some funding.
Congratulations to the board and to all of the city of Reading, and we think it'll take care of two or three annual reports and one of the 5-year
And
reports.
5-year, yes.
Which is huge.
So, I listened in for half a day to the Trinity Management Council, which happens to be the Trinity River, TRRP, whatever that acronym.
Last Thursday morning?
Yeah, well, it was Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, I missed Wednesday, I listened Thursday.
Oh, did you? It was so difficult to listen to. So their meeting this time was in Willow Creek, in whatever room they were in. So they start talking legal jargon and you can't hear, and and so, the last time I actually listened for the whole darn day and a half, and this time half a day is all I could, and I don't even know what they were talking about. So.
I have nothing to report because I could hear nothing.
Yes.
Well, no, I heard a lot, I just couldn't understand what
Yeah,
they said.
yeah, so, there is a LAFCO meeting October 5th, 9 o'clock at the Reading City Council chambers. Their agendas usually don't come out until a few days before, so I don't know what's on the agenda. And just a reminder, the trash vouchers or dump vouchers, go get yours here at the office. I think they're good until October or something. 27. So.
We got a lot of people coming in to get them, so get them.
Yep, get them. We are going to go to closed session now. We are not going to be having any outcome come out of it. It is just a discussion at this point. We're going to be public employees to consider performance evaluation of the general manager pursuant to government code subsection 54957B1. We are also going to just kind of look at some other personnel issues, but no decisions are going to be made. So if you go home, you can be rest assured that no decisions will be taking place in there. Is there any comments from the floor before we go to closed session?
I just want to say Paul is very effective out there at the farmer's market. He was introduced to everybody out there, and they were just really surprised that his suggestion about the fire hydrant, and most of them were very pleased. The girl in charge of the fundraiser for the rebuilding of the Grange, they've been up against so much with trying to get permits and money to pay for the fees and blueprints and floor plan. They have a schematic they've been showing at their booth on the floor plan, and lo and behold, on the Channel 7 News last week, they showed the groundbreaking for the Ono Grange. Finally, those people have worked so hard. And I think it'll put a lot of new heart into the community, because so many people have been moving out. They just don't want to rebuild, they just want to get away.
Yep.
So that fire hydrant's gonna mean a whole lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Anyone else? Okay, so it is 8:16, we're going to, I don't think I say adjourn, what do I say?
Adjourn to closed session.
Okay, adjourn to closed session.